Hi y'all, welcome to ECHO's North America Regional Impact Center. I'm Leah Phillips, the Assistant Farm Manager here in Fort Myers, Florida. Thanks for joining today. We'll be talking about how to make fermented fish emulsion as a homemade fertilizer for your garden or farm. So what are the benefits of homemade fermented fish emulsion? It can be a great fertilizer for you in your garden or farm. It has a nice amount of nitrogen for an organic fertilizer, between 3 and 5% estimated, as well as trace amounts of phosphorus, potassium, and your other minor elements. But its true benefit is enhancing your soil microbe, your soil flora and fauna. So all the little microorganisms that live in your soil, we can help them out with fish emulsion. Basically, we're taking microbes in the fish, propagating them, and adding them to your garden. So it's also, because it's a creature, it has amino acids in the fish that also benefit your plant. So between the elements, the amino acids, and the microbes that come with it, you're increasing your soil fertility, increasing your nutrient cycling, and overall growing healthier, happier, more productive plants. So what do we need to actually make fish emulsion? It can be pretty simple. You obviously need fish. In this case, we've got some tilapia fish heads from our harvest here at the North America Rick farm. And then you need a sugar source, so typically molasses. You can actually use granulated brown sugar as well. You need a very fancy stirring instrument, such as a nice hard stick. You do need some way to take a measurement. So we have a little scale here. Today we're doing 1 kilogram of fish waste to 1 liter of molasses. And then we need to chop up what we have a little bit. The smaller the pieces, the faster it breaks down. So we have a little cutting board and a knife or cutting instrument. You can also just use a normal kitchen knife, depending on your context. And then we will need something to strain our solution after it's fermented. And then we'll need something to cover the lid of the bucket while it ferments and tie it down. And then, of course, we will need some H2O to go along with all of that. So where are your fish coming from? The best place to source your fish is when you can get byproducts of fish, cast off waste, parts of fish that we don't like to eat, bycatch from a fisherman, or invasive species, because we don't want to be depleting our natural resources just to fertilize our plants. So in this case, I've got some fish heads that we just can only eat so much fish head soup. But we're gonna chop these guys up, mix them with molasses, and yeah, keep on going. Okay, so we've got our fish waste. It's all chunked up so that we have more surface area for the microbe activity to break it down. And then we have our next ingredient, a liter of molasses. So our third ingredient, water. We're doing so it's 3 parts water to 1 part molasses. So today we're doing 3 liters of water. So now we've got our water, molasses, and fish, and we're just gonna stir it up really well. Some folks will even stir it for an hour. As long as you really get the sugars worked through the fish as much as possible and everything really mixed in, you should be good to go. You don't need to stir it for that long. Okay, so at this point, we've got our fish chopped up as small as possible. We've got our molasses and our water mixed in there. Remember, that's 3 parts water to 1 part molasses. And so now, one thing that some folks do like to do is add a slosh of EM, effective microorganisms, or IMO, indigenous microorganisms. That's just to help inoculate it, to help the breakdown go a bit faster. So you're adding additional microbes to what you're getting out of the fish. You already have microbes in here, but it might help you to add a few more, depending on what your goals are. So now, if we're not adding EM, we can just go ahead and cover it up with something porous, because we still want air to be able to get in and out, but we don't want insects or other creatures to get in. And we can just tie it off in some way to keep those creatures out. So I'm just using a basic rope and this is a burlap sack. And then we'll just set this in the shade, in the back of a shed, for 2 to 4 weeks, let it ferment, and then after 2 to 4 weeks, we'll take some sort of strainer and actually just pour the fertilizer through the strainer, pull the fish guts out. You can take that to your garden, bury it. There's still going to be a little bit of stuff in there, but it'll actually be surprisingly broken down. And then the remaining fertilizer you can use in your garden. We made our fish ferment. It fermented for 2 to 4 weeks. We strained out all of the bones and harder pieces that didn't decompose. There's often a lot of scale in there as well. And then we have it, this is actually just an old molasses container. So this is everything that didn't get strained out. This is our fertilizer that we're going to be using today. Everything that we did strain out, we just went ahead and buried in the garden to let it decompose a bit more. And then as for applying, folks use fish emulsion in a lot of different ways. Some people will actually use a very fine dilution and soak their seeds in it because it can help seed germination. You can use it at most stages of your crop's life. It's especially helpful in bed preparation, to do it well before you're planting anything, to help get your microbe population in your soil nice and healthy. You can use it at the seedling stage, and then a little older, up to flowering and young fruit producing. If you're going by USDA Organic standards, do a bit more research on your specific crop, because there are standards to avoid cross-contamination, getting microbes on your fruits and veggies going to market, so keep that in mind. Today at Echo, we're going to be fertilizing some young eggplant, about that tall, and I'm going to use a 1 to 200 dilution, so 65 milliliters to 13 gallons of water. And I'm just going to make it thicker. But you can use a dilution rate anywhere from 1 to 100 to 1 to 500, depending on what your crop's needs are, how much nitrogen, how healthy they are, things like that. So let's fertilize. So I love this stage of eggplant. It's got a ways to go before it flowers, but this is a time when our eggplant really needs a lot of nitrogen and just healthy microbe help. So that's what we're going to be fertilizing today. Okay, so one thing that we always emphasize to our interns and other farmers who we interact with here at Echo North America is if you're engaging with a fertilizer or a pest management strategy that's new to you, it's always a good idea to test it for efficacy, see if it works for you and your plants, or see if it's been on the shelf too long. Maybe that the fish emulsion fertilizer typically can last on a shelf once it's strained between 6 months to a year, but the efficacy will probably decline. So you might want to put more product. So in this case, I'm going to fertilize half the eggplant on this side of the cranberry hibiscus bush, and then the other half I'm going to leave alone, and we'll see who does better. Well, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about fish emulsion. For more information, please visit echocommunity.org and join the forum, ask questions, and please give your input and your experiences in working with fish emulsion. I look forward to your Q&A in the webinar.